Most people think they know exactly who buys $1 million home. They picture someone in a tailored suit, corner office, maybe inherited money, someone fundamentally different from them. But here's the thing. A recent survey found that over 60% of million-dollar homeowners describe their own income as comfortable. Not wealthy, not rich, comfortable. Today I'm breaking down the exact numbers behind who actually buys these homes, what they earn, what they own, and honestly, how close you might already be. Let's start with a number you've probably heard before. The median household income across the US, UK, and Canada sits somewhere around $60,000 to $70,000 a year, depending on where you live. Most people hear that number and feel roughly average, neither behind nor ahead. But here's what that number hides. The median and the average are two very different things. The average household income is pulled upward by a small number of extremely high earners at the top. So, when you hear the average, it sounds higher than where most people actually land. The median is what the person in the exact middle earns. And if you're earning above that median, even slightly, you're already ahead of more than half of every household in your country. That's not a small thing. Most people have no idea they're already in that position. But earning above the median doesn't get you $1 million home. Not even close. So let's talk about what actually does. To seriously consider a $1 million home, you need to be somewhere in the top 10% of earners. In the United States, that threshold sits at roughly $150,000 a year for an individual. For a household, it's closer to $200,000. In the UK, the top 10% begins at around £80,000 annually. In Canada, individual income at that level starts near 130,000 Canadian dollars. Now picture who actually lives at this number. It's not who you think. It's a nurse married to a mid-level manager. It's two teachers in a dual-income household in a major city. It's a software developer 5 years into their career who just got their first real promotion. These are not people flying private. They're driving a 4-year-old car, debating whether to renovate the kitchen, and wondering why they still feel stretched at the end of the month. And that feeling is the strange paradox of the top 10%. You are statistically ahead of 9 out of 10 households. But it rarely feels that way, because the people around you, your colleagues, your neighbors, your social circle, they are all at a similar level. So the comparison never stops. But does earning this actually make you wealthy? That's a different question entirely. Move up one layer, and you're looking at the top 5%. In the US, this is individual income above around $250,000 a year. In the UK, it's roughly £120,000. In Canada, somewhere around 200,000 Canadian dollars. At this level, the professions start to narrow. You're talking about senior partners at law firms, experienced surgeons, airline pilots with seniority, tech leads at established companies, or business owners who've been building for a decade or more. Here's something that surprises most people. The top 5% in cities like San Francisco, London, or Toronto often feel less wealthy than someone earning half that amount in a smaller town. Because the cost of living in those cities consumes income at a rate most outsiders don't expect. A $250,000 income in Manhattan is a comfortable life. It is not a lavish one. One demographic point worth noting. Age matters enormously here. The majority of people in the top 5% are over 45, not because younger people can't earn it, but because income at this level is usually the result of compounding career decisions, not a single lucky break. So is income the right measure of wealth? Honestly, not really. And that's the part most people miss entirely, the top 1%. In the United States, this is individual income above roughly $600,000 a year. In the UK, it's around £160,000, which is lower than most people expect. In Canada, it's approximately 250,000 Canadian dollars. Picture a married couple. One is a specialist doctor. The other is a senior corporate lawyer. Together they are clearing over $1 million a year in combined income. By every definition, they are in the top 1%. But here's what's true about their life that almost no one talks about. They are still trading hours for money. The doctor works 55-hour weeks. The lawyer bills until 9 most nights. Their income is real. But so is its cost. And over the past 5 years, the income required to reach the top 1% has shifted upward in all 3 countries, partly driven by inflation, partly by wage growth at the top end, compressing the gap between 5% and 1% earners. The bar is moving, which means income alone is never the complete picture. The bigger story isn't what people earn. It's what they've built over time. Here's where it gets really interesting. Everything up to this point has been about income, what lands in your account each month. But the people buying $2 million and $5 million homes are mostly not doing it on salary alone. They're doing it on something else entirely. There's a shift that happens in wealth building that most people never see coming, and if you miss it, you can earn well for decades and still wonder where it all went. That shift is the move from income to net worth. And it changes everything about how you look at these home purchases. The average household net worth in the United States is around $560,000. In the UK, it's closer to £300,000. In Canada, roughly 340,000 Canadian dollars. Those numbers sound solid until you pull them apart. The majority of that net worth in all 3 countries is locked in property, not cash, not investments, not liquid assets you can move. It's equity sitting inside the walls of a home that people are still living in. For most households, if you strip out the primary residence, net worth drops dramatically, sometimes by more than half. Now break it down by age, and the picture becomes much clearer. A household in their 30s is likely sitting on net worth somewhere between $50,000 and $150,000. In their 40s, that often climbs to $300,000 to $500,000. By their late 50s, the households that have been quietly consistent, not spectacular, just consistent, are frequently sitting on over $1 million in total net worth. Here's the core insight. Wealth is not a salary event. It is not a promotion, a bonus, or a single good year. It is a decade-long accumulation of small, boring, consistent decisions compounding quietly in the background. Think about a retired teacher with 30 years of pension contributions, a home bought early and paid down steadily, and modest investments running on autopilot, versus a 35-year-old earning $200,000 a year who upgrades their car every 2 years, lives in a premium apartment, and has $40,000 in savings. On paper, the teacher is wealthier. Almost no one would guess that from the outside. Now zoom out even further, because this reframe might be the most useful thing in this entire video. Globally, the median wealth per adult is around $10,000. That's the middle point for the entire planet. In the United States, median wealth per adult is over $100,000. In the UK, it's around £125,000. In Canada, it's around 130,000 Canadian dollars. That means the typical adult in any of these 3 countries is already in the top 10 to 15% of global wealth holders, not income. Wealth, and roughly 50% of the world's adult population holds under $10,000 in total assets, not income. Everything, all of it combined. This is not meant to dismiss the real financial pressure that people in these countries feel. That pressure is real. But it does mean that when you're asking who buys $1 million home, you're asking about a group that sits in the top fraction of global wealth distribution. And some of those people started from a very ordinary place and simply stayed consistent for long enough. So why does none of this feel true? Why do people earning $200,000 a year still feel behind? Why does someone with a net worth of $400,000 feel like they're barely keeping up? Because we don't compare ourselves to the global median. We compare ourselves to whoever is just ahead of us. There's a term for this: reference group bias. Your brain doesn't benchmark your wealth against $10,000 net worth households in developing countries. It benchmarks against your neighbor who just bought a bigger car, against your colleague who mentioned their second property, against the friend who posted photos from a holiday you couldn't quite justify this year. And that comparison is always slightly out of reach. By design. Because as you move up, your reference group moves with you. The person earning $80,000 feels behind the person earning $150,000. The person earning $150,000 feels behind the $250,000 earner. And the $250,000 earner is watching someone else and wondering what they're doing wrong. Lifestyle inflation makes this worse. As income rises, so do the standards, the subscriptions, the neighborhood, the school, the car, the holidays. The number gets bigger, but the gap between income and contentment stays exactly the same. This is not a character flaw. It is a deeply human mechanism. And understanding it is genuinely worth more than any single financial decision you could make this year. So let's bring it all together. The person buying a $1 million home is usually in the top 10% of household income. Likely dual income, probably in their late 30s to mid-50s, and has been building net worth steadily for at least a decade. They don't feel wealthy. But the numbers say otherwise. The person buying a $2 million home is typically in the top 5%, often with substantial equity from a previous property, and, in many cases, has built a business, held senior equity in a company, or benefited from a long run of property appreciation in a major city. The person buying a $5 million home is operating in a world where liquid net worth, not salary, is the primary driver. These are people whose assets are working for them, not the other way around. The one thing that separates almost all of them from the people who never get there is not a single income event. It is the decision to stop spending every raise and start converting income into assets. That's the shift. That's where it actually begins. So here's the question worth sitting with. If wealth is built over decades and not earned in a single year, what decision are you currently delaying that your future self is going to wish you'd made today?